Hello, my name is Will Haddon, and I'm the consultant that you hired for L Brands to conduct the optimal ethics survey and to provide recommendations for your company. Today I'll be covering three areas of recommendation. But first, let's go over the overall results. Overall, as you can see at the bottom, the grand total, L Brands scored 50 yes answers, 34 sometimes answers, and 6 no answers. Overall, the organization performed less than adequately as an average organization. Many of the strengths, however, include environmental management, community outreach, and a very strong code of ethics and business code of conduct. The bottom line up front is L Brands is weak in following through with their ethical compliance and fails to train lower level management sufficiently. The organization talks a good game, but they're not really walking the walk. They have a solid foundation of ethical guidance and engaged leadership. In theory, your company has little evidence of training conducted other than general ethical and responsibility behavior of most of your employees. L Brand's commitment to ethical values still shows weakness when reviewing future goals, performance reviews, and overall ethical behavior, as I'll discuss in the recommendations. L Brand's weakness in ethics training could be attributed to weakness in other areas such as high employee turnover or employee personality conflicts, which there seems to be a lot of in the reviews. L Brands employees behave ethically by all appearances on the outside, but some employee feedback indicates otherwise. First, we'll take a look at the areas that we need to improve in. As you can see here in red, ethical decision making, the score of 2 sometimes, 1 no. Ethics training, score of 2 yes, 3 sometimes, 2 no. Ethical leadership, work goals, performance appraisals with a score of 5 yeses, 8 sometimes, and 0 no's. So those were the 3 lowest scoring answers. We'll start with ethical decision making. L Brands employees indicate that they are not comfortable engaging each other about ethical issues in the business. This is according to Glassdoor.com and Indeed.com. Some employees, in fact, have been told to cut corners and take advantage of customers. This is a problem with lower level store managers, and that's going to be a recurring theme. Many employees felt they didn't have a voice and were not able to speak up due to retaliation or fear of losing their job. So they definitely weren't involved in the decision-making process, and they felt that since they weren't able to talk about the issues that they were seeing. These statements show a propensity to go against the individual values of the own ethical base of the company. Knowing something is wrong and continuing to act in a manner contrary to your core values and ethics is hypocritical and shows poor leadership and training. And that's where we want to focus as at lower level managers. That's where the disconnect is. Moving on here, recommendation, just a little background. Of the 6 ethical theories, L Brands currently acts within the utilitarianism theory, with their service to so many individuals doing the greatest good for the biggest number of people. Within the organization, different subgroups and cohorts are contrary to this finding, but overall, the organization I would classify as utilitarian. They do a lot for the community, they do a lot for inclusion and diversity, a lot for the environment. Within the manager and employee chain store culture, often the reports are that managers act as egoists. They're really only concerned about their own advancement, their own personal preferences, rather than that of the retail floor employee or the company as a whole. If L Brands managers and leadership adopted a deontology culture, the organization would benefit from greater rewards internally and greater rate of employee satisfaction. As it stands now, though, employees currently with L Brands companies, previous employees, are creating a preponderance of negative remarks toward their lower level management. This is a clear indication that the vision of the highest levels of management in the company is either not reaching the lowest levels or the lowest levels are not being held accountable for their lack of adherence to the company's stated positions and expectations. Likewise, if the management at the lower levels understood and bought into virtue ethics, they would develop and maintain a moral character and fortitude to act virtuously always in and out of the spotlight, and whether they cared or not, if employees were pleased or displeased with their employment experience. Moving on to the next area here, ethics training. As stated before, L Brands has a plethora of solid verbiage that would lead you to believe that they're in fact on top of the ethical ball. The website is inundated with the code of conduct, the code of ethics, talk of values, talk of moral compass. But what we're finding in the employee feedback, current and previous employee feedback, is quite contrary. All research of employee feedback and attempts to access specific ethical training guidelines and processes has been for naught. There's really no training that's happening at the lower levels. The basic guideline for L Brands Code of Conduct is do what's right always, regardless of the circumstances. You emphasize an open door policy and confidence in reporting. However, that's just generally not happening. So the recommendations are, ethics training is essential for building trust and recreating a culture in the organization. Employees should be surveyed and the results then compiled and presented to upper level management to develop a remedial training program and bring the organization into compliance with the ethical standards that is expected of a business. The disconnect is somewhere at the lowest levels. However, further inspection yields indication that upper level management does not model a message of their expectations other than on the website. It really isn't being talked about or modeled at the highest levels of what's expected at the lowest levels. There's an extreme disconnect. It looks pretty in a brief swell. It might make shareholders give them the warm and fuzzy and think that the organization is doing the right thing. But the truth of the matter is there is no engaged leadership, and employees are dissatisfied with the care and concern at the lowest levels. In addition to recurring training, L Brands should conduct surveys and ethical benchmarking checkpoints to get a feel for their progress. Ethical dilemmas and problems are going to exist no matter what, and the employees need to be equipped to engage them. I would also highly recommend the Giving Voice to Values curriculum be trained so employees are well versed in how to address issues. Moving on to ethical leadership, work goals, and performance appraisals. On the website Glassdoor.com, advice to management is an area it often includes reviews of current and past employees. One employee actually stated, "Take the time to learn the department you are in charge of. Interact and make the team feel like you care, instead of just saying it." This message and many like it communicate a failure of the organization to do as they say. Numerous reviews stated that favoritism is the company's downfall since mostly women oversee management positions. This is quite contradictory to L Brands' stated position as a stalwart organization of inclusion and diversity. It may be due to the fact that the majority of the brands for your company are designed and produced for women. There are indications that the culture is bad and those leaders do not listen or care what employees say, and worse yet, they're unwilling to promote equal and fair treatment for those of other genders within. Another employee says, "Give managers proper training and follow up on their performance. Connect and listen to associates and clients for better performance." This is a very recurring theme in that employees feel that managers are just simply not trained, and they're definitely not acting ethically with favoritism, inconsistent reviews, not creating a culture and climate of trust where issues can be talked about. Other reviews indicate that there's no work-life balance, no communication. The company completely lacks decision-making strategy and transparency. A tool. All of L Brands reports numbers are numbers and figures upon tables and graphs and charts. There's abundance of data, but there's really no information for personal and professional development. I suggest that L Brands simply start with the basics of training leadership principles and ethics to invest in each leader and manager. Simply being placed in a leadership position doesn't give doesn't give somebody the requisite skills that they need to lead properly. The organization will improve with leadership training. A tool that would be beneficial in measuring ethical behavior management performance is utilizing ethical leadership survey. The survey would allow employees and managers to see which areas they lack and can improve in. Employees in many organizations don't feel rewarded. They need to find some intrinsic and extrinsic motivation rewards. It is important to consider all levels of employees, though, not just the retail floor worker. They are the main sources of negative information, however. Some other areas that need some improvement. L Brands does a great job of promoting diversity and improving the world. However, there's a tremendous amount of negative feedback that there isn't training being conducted, that managers simply are not connected to the employees, not taking care of the employees, they're not passing down the vital training, and not promoting a climate of trust. At that lowest level of management is where L Brands is mainly facing, in the stores where the customer and employee transaction immediately affects the triple bottom line. Where it must be addressed is at the top, and not by more articulation of expectations on policies and codes, but in training and engaged leadership. Action on this matter will bring L Brands to the level of a truly superior world-class organization. In conclusion, L Brands must improve the lowest levels of management to improve their score, to improve their ethical conduct. Here are my references. If any of your questions, this concludes my brief. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you again.